Hey,
Okay, so my name is Bree Williams, and this is my informative speech. The topic is the school to prison pipeline. Okay, so as of February 2018, the African American minority group no longer make up the largest minority group in the United States. According to the 2016 census, the Hispanic American minority group has surpassed the African American group by 6%. Even though whites are the majority group in the United States, the minorities are the most affected by systems put in place by the government that incriminates their lives. The school to prison pipeline is a system that provokes minority children and young adults to vacate from the educational path in life, causing them to become accustomed to the institutionalized thug life lifestyle. The system is also known as the SPP, the school to prison link, and the schoolhouse to jailhouse track. As a young child, the United States gives the nationwide tests that are set to see how well the child has progressed educationally and behaviorally. The results are filtered to see how many more cells and jails need to be built instead of educational institutions. According to the mass incarceration statistics, American criminal systems have 2.3 million people, with 1,719 state prisons, 102 federal prisons, 942 juvenile correctional facilities, 3,283 local jails, and 79 Indian country jails. These numbers do not include military systems, immigration detention facilities, and commitment centers in the United States. If the child's testing is flagged, they are automatically placed on the track towards prison. For the remaining of their educational careers, the child is not assisted in life but put on a watch by teachers, authoritative citizens, and citizens of power. The school to prison pipeline begins in the classrooms, when the child or young adult is challenged by the teacher, the citizen of authority, to achieve higher expectations. In the classroom, the teacher ignores the required extra attention of the child, who may have a learning disability, been abused, or neglected, by criminalizing minor infractions of school rules. This tactic is called the zero tolerance policy. This allows a trend of out-of-school suspensions and expulsions that sees the child/young adult's learning capacity for a limited amount of time. This policy has impacted students very vastly over the years. Rates of suspension and expulsion have skyrocketed from 1.7 million in 1974 to 3.1 million in 2003. This was told by the ACLU. These numbers have been increasing drastically for the students of color. Suspensions and expulsions lead to harsh impacts on the students' learning. This causes failure in grades, falling behind in coursework, which later has some mental break that causes dropouts and disengagements. While talking to Principal Good at Emory High School, Oakland, California, she mentions that the negative approaches to situations at schools cause students to become educationally insecure, as the words that she used. Once the student feels disconnected from the coursework, the mind begins to wander and seemingly attract other students. According to Principal Good, this is one of the main circumstances that gets students sent out of class and to the principal's office for a distribution of disciplinary action. All these events and negative consequences eventually lead up to at least one visit amongst the courtroom at the minimum. While reading an article in Teen Vogue, I stumbled amongst a story about a 6-year-old girl who was arrested for throwing items during a tantrum in class. Though the child hadn't been more active than anyone else in the class, she was seen to be more aggressive and potentially dangerous because of her race. People were distraught over the incident, but scientists have provided statistics that Black and Latino children and young adults are disproportionately disciplined in schools, even though they do not misbehave more than their peers do. This way of thinking has created the national trend that targets Black and brown children, ending up with at least a part of their lives spent behind bars. Another factor that has increased over the years has been the amount of schools that have school resource officers on campus. From one's personal experience growing up in a low-opportunity, high-poverty urban community, the cops were never a friend or one to lean on in times of need. Growing up with this mentality sets a substantial amount of fear when in the presence of an officer. According to OUSD, by the year of 2008, all Oakland public schools had officers on campus. Oakland, California is a poor community and America's third most dangerous city. Before pieces of gentrification, Oakland was 87% minority families. At schools, the presence of an officer gave an overbearing quantity of fear and pain. According to the 2011 report from the Justice Policy Institute, When schools have law enforcement on site, students are more likely to be arrested by police instead of disciplined by handling by school officers. This action exposed students to a police arrest and brutality, whether they are involved in the incident or not. The images of arrest constantly repeat in the child's mind, becoming a permanent memory that inflicts the brain. Automatically, when something like this is done again, the mind triggers fear and reflects on the actions it had once seen. As the person grows and experiences life more, they begin to become aware and comfortable with having discomforting events occur in their lives. This leads to an abundance of PTSD and mental health, which is ignored by society the older you get. All these factors are set to obtain and maintain people to be a part of the school-to-prison pipeline system. No matter what people try to say about the system, there is no positive spin on it. Actually, according to Youth Together Incorporation, a nonprofit student resource company, most African Americans and Latino students are unaware of the system that has been set up to exceed their failure. By you learning this, you now have the power to illuminate somebody else's mind. So we are all aware. Everyone has a black or brown friend or knows someone who is African American or Latino. By you knowing this, you're allowing yourself to break the chain and allowing it not to reoccur again. So the school-to-prison pipeline doesn't have to be a recurring cycle, especially if you decide to speak up instead of being silent. Thank you. So mic drop.